It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
Let's talk about something I'm quickly approaching.
Okay.
50s and beyond. This is, I'm hoping this is a point of celebration for you because you're a wise field general. There's not a dollar that's in your army that you haven't, counseled well, and you put them into very efficient places so they can be maximized. They're not locked into, just sitting in the bank account, not doing what they're supposed to. But I'm also worried that this could be a cautionary tale. There's a lot of people that they're at this stage starting to look back and going, man, if I'd have just known about this then, I could have done it differently.
If you want to kind of give yourself an assessment, if you want to do a litmus test of how you stand up to next to your peers, according to data compiled by Fidelity, the average 401k for someone in their 50s in this country is about $204,000, right? So now this is someone who's approaching retirement, approaching financial independence, getting that stage of life. They've got saved about $204,000.
Now look, I'm interrupting again because I did this last time. I still don't think that's enough because I told we as we did the 40s, we know as you approach your 50s, you're supposed to be approaching close to five times your working income. If you take $203,000 divided by 5, that's a little over $40,000. These 50-somethings are making more than $40,000. It's not an income issue. We have a savings and a building of assets problem. That's not good.
Now, another thing that we see in this data is that the average contribution rate for someone in their 50s is about 10.5%. Now, I think what that means is folks in their 50s have not taken seriously that, oh man, I need to be saving 20 to 25%. But I want to flip this around, Brian, because you say something all the time. When you and your wife were early on in your wealth building journey, you told her, you said, hey, if we can just go pedal to the metal in our 20s and 30s, and we can save aggressively and get our army of dollar bills built up, by the time we get to our 40s and 50s, we can take our foot off the pedal. We can slow down. We can save a little bit less. I would like to think that the reason the savings rate for people in their 50s is 10% is because they've reached that stage where they could take the foot off the pedal. But I don't think, judging by that average 401k balance, I don't think that's the case.
Well, I think you have to flip the coin over. I think what actually happens, and we see this when you're talking to people just out in the general public, is that they realize the mortality is there and they're only 10, 15 years from retirement. And they're like, there's a reason this decade's savings rate is higher than 20-somethings, 30-somethings, and 40-somethings. I think that people start panicking, and you do see that contribution rate tick up. But you're right. If you do this right, and you're a wise field general, there's potential. You've already reached some level of success, and that's why I say it's a moment of celebration. But for, I think, the vast majority, the non-financial mutants, it is a little scary.
Now, in your 50s, you can see the landing, right? You may be entering into retirement in your 50s, or certainly you're thinking about it in your 60s. Your landing gear is down. So if you want to know, okay, where should I be? Where should my total portfolio value be? According to Fidelity, you should have about 8.1 times your annual income saved by the end of your 50s. By the time you get to age 60, you should have a little over 8 times your income saved, according to Fidelity.
Yeah, and I'll take it a step further. By the time you're 65, it should be close to 10 times your income. So pay attention to those numbers, because this is when you are bringing it in for a landing, you need to be paying attention. Now, I've given a lot of cold water on this, but I still think that there's opportunities even for latecomers. Because when we pull up the stats for where a 50-year-old, if you save 52%. Now, I know that's crazy. That is because we got taxes. But there are fire people. There are 20-somethings, there are 30-somethings that are showing you this can be done. Even a 50-year-old starting from scratch, this is incredible to me to think about that you save 52%. You still have a chance to retire in 15 short years and let your army of dollar bills give you a retirement that's 60% of your working income.
Now, I think that 50 is probably the last step on that, right? Because if you wait until you're 55 to start, if you're at 0 going into 55, you'd have to save 85% of your earned income to be able to retire at 60% of your pre-retirement income by 65. I think realistically, what you probably have to do is if you're waiting until 55 to start, you have to have some real conversations with yourself around, is 65 actually my retirement number? Or do I need to work a little bit longer? Do I need to bridge the gap until I can start drawing Social Security? How can I begin to reformat my plan to actually have a plan in place?
Or definitely expand out the working career. I mean, you're probably going 70, 75. Good news is technology, healthcare expanding. Sure. I think there's always an opportunity to find goodness, an opportunity to move forward. Just you gotta make it happen. So let's talk about the pitfalls. This is a big one as we're getting to the point of that you are approaching financial independence if you've done this right. You kind of need to understand distribution rules and asset allocation because you probably are at this point. Tax location means something to you.
Big deal, yep.
I mean, we love index target retirement funds, but at this point, maybe you're charitably minded. Maybe you want to be able to, tax loss those and harvest those losses, but you also want to get smart with, hey, we want to put really growing assets in our Roth accounts since they grow tax-free. We want to put our liquid assets as well as our capital gains and dividend assets in the after-tax. And we want to put our ordinary income generating assets in those tax-deferred buckets because that's going to be the most tax-efficient thing. That's important to understand at this age.
And you probably also do want to understand your distribution rules. When can you actually get access to your money? It's heartbreaking when we see someone says, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to retire early, and I'm going to retire when I'm 54. And we're like, you're so close to that age 55 that if you retire at 55, you can get access to your 401k dollars, and you can't do that at 54. And if you don't have any 401k dollars, you can't actually get to your IRA assets until 59 and a half. You have to make sure you understand your pots of money. And just because you know what you are retiring to and you know what you're escaping from, you also have to know how you're going to pay the bills. Where are your dollars going to come from and which ones of your dollars are locked up and difficult to get to if you're someone who's exiting the workforce in your 50s.
And then we kind of closed it out with, and this is an important one, not minimizing risk as you reach retirement.
Sure.
Now, here's what we mean by this, because on the previous slide, we showed you the biggest savings group out of 20 all the way through 50 plus was the 50 plus group. And I think that's because in a lot of cases, there's a big uh-oh. I mean, you realize your mortality, you realize that retirement's coming, and you're like, man, I better get serious with this. There's also this desire that I need every dollar to earn as much as possible. And Fidelity, according to their research, found out that baby boomers are the most likely generation to be too aggressively invested.
So the generation that probably should be taking risk off the table is the one most likely to be over allocated to risk assets.
And that's a scary thing because I get it. There's some desperation in that decision that I'm going to be way aggressive because, man, if they'd let me buy Bitcoin in my 401k, I think there's unfortunately a lot of baby boomers that would say, I'm willing to roll the dice at this point because I got to make up for a lot of years that I didn't understand this whole concept of army of dollar bills and wealth multiplier. That's not where you want to be. So be very mindful that as you get older, it's not only the risk tolerance that you can handle emotionally, it's also what's called risk capacity, meaning that you might not have the years to wait for a market recovery. And let me give you some math exercises on this. If the market loses 50%, how much do you have to make to get your money back?
It's more than 50%.
It's 100%. That's a cool thing about math, or a cool little magic trick you can play, because if you lose 10%, you only have to make back 11% to get your money back. You can quickly see why diversification, asset allocation, because you can probably make 11% back within a year and a half. It's going to take you to get 100% return.
A long
It might
time.
take 7 years. It might take a decade. And if you're a person in your 50s and your 60s, that's time that you don't want to be waiting for your money to get back to break even to get back to work for you. So be mindful of where you are with your asset allocation.
For those of us who have access to 401k accounts, to employer-sponsored retirement accounts, they can be tremendous wealth building tools, whether it be because of the free employer money that our employer puts in, or whether it be because I get a tax benefit from putting in pre-tax contributions, or I get a tax-free benefit from doing Roth contributions. Make sure you're not squandering this opportunity to utilize a 401k to be a huge tool in your tool belt of building long-term financial wealth.
I know there's a lot of financial mutants out there, and you have crossed into seven-figure status by just being good at letting your army of dollar bills work through saving, through investing. And you're probably getting to the point where I've often said, this is why the abundance cycle is self-fulfilling and I can just give away so much free information. I know a lot of you guys are great do-it-yourselfers, and it's easy when life is simple. But the more successful you are, the more complicated the decisions become. Plus, you're also now the CEO of a seven-figure business. If you think about it, if you look at your retirement plans, you look at all the assets you've saved, you are now the CEO of a seven-figure business. That's some decisions. You don't know what you don't know, and you also worry about legacy. You worry about, am I taking on too much risk? This all gets to be, even I don't care how good you are, you're probably going to want a co-pilot. And that's why I know Complexity will find the successful people out there so we can give it away. You can come learn, apply, grow the concepts we're teaching you. But when you reach that level of success and you go, you know what? I need to get somebody in here. That's where the abundance cycle pays off. The cycle completes itself because you take the relationship to the next level because you remember who planted those seeds. We thank you so much. Remember, go to moneyguy.com/resources. We have, this is just one of the free resources. We have just pages of free downloads you can check out. Also know we just had a brand new relaunch of the Financial Order of Operations. It was extremely successful the first time, but Bo and I, being who we are, we're perfectionists on making sure that this abundance cycle keeps accelerating people's success so they can graduate through that cycle even faster. That we watch the videos we created in the first Financial Order of Operations. We say, you know what? This was good, but we can do even better, especially from some of the feedback. We have doubled the content in the Financial Order of Operations. So go check that out. You can go to visitlearn.moneyguy.com and look at the full Financial Order of Operations course and accelerate that abundance cycle even faster.
We are going to keep the content coming. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. We love you guys.
Hey, thank you. We couldn't do any of this without your support. I'm Brian Preston, Mr. Bo Hansen, Money Guy team, out.